She scrubbed his floors every night for 3 years. He signed billion-dollar deals every morning. They never spoke a single word to each other. But the day her daughter was dying, he made one phone call that saved her. And she will never know it was him. Take a breath, because this story is going to break your heart. And then, the woman behind the mop. The marble floors of Vantage Tower in downtown Chicago reflected 1,000 lights every evening. On the 42nd floor, the executive floor, the hallways smelled like expensive cologne, fresh coffee, and power. This was the world of Richard Callaway, CEO of Callaway Global Enterprises, a company worth $14 billion. But every night, after the last executive had gone home, after the last secretary had shut down her computer, a woman named Helen Mercer pushed a yellow mop bucket out of the elevator and began her shift. Helen was 51 years old. Her hands were rough from years of cleaning solutions. Her back ached every morning when she woke up. She wore a gray uniform with a small name tag that most people never bothered to read. She had worked the night shift at Vantage Tower for 3 years, from 9 in the evening until 2 in the morning, 5 nights a week. She never complained, not once, because Helen Mercer had a reason to keep going. A reason that made every sore muscle worth it, every sleepless night worth it, every moment of invisibility worth it. Her daughter, Lily. Lily was 23 years old, bright, funny, with her mother's warm brown eyes and her late father's stubborn chin. She had just graduated with a nursing degree and was about to start her first job when the diagnosis came. Stage 3 heart failure, the kind that required immediate surgery, the kind that cost money Helen Mercer simply did not have. The doctors were kind when they explained it. The hospital counselor gave her pamphlets with phone numbers for financial assistance, but the surgery cost $240,000. Insurance covered less than half. The gap, $130,000, was a mountain Helen could not climb, so she did what she had always done. She kept working. She picked up extra shifts. She sold her late husband's watch, the one she had kept for 12 years. She started a GoFundMe that raised $4,000 in 2 weeks. She applied for medical loans that turned her down because of her credit score. Every night, she pushed that mop across the 42nd floor, and every night she prayed quietly that somehow, some way, God would find a solution she couldn't see yet. The man behind the glass, Richard Callaway, was the kind of man that business magazines described as visionary and ruthless in equal measure. At 56, he had gray at his temples, a permanent crease between his brows from decades of reading contracts, and a calendar so full that his assistant scheduled his bathroom breaks. He had built Callaway Global from nothing. Grown up in a 1-bedroom apartment in Milwaukee with a mother who worked 2 jobs. He knew what it meant to watch someone you love sacrifice everything silently. He had carried that knowledge all the way to the 42nd floor, and then, somewhere along the way, buried it under quarterly reports and shareholder meetings. He had been married once, divorced 12 years ago. His ex-wife had said he was emotionally absent. She wasn't wrong. He had no children, or so the world believed. Here is the truth that Richard Callaway had kept locked behind the coldest room in his chest for 24 years. Helen Mercer was not just his janitor. She was the woman he had loved at 32, briefly, intensely, and in secret. A relationship that lasted 8 months before his ambition pulled him away. Before he chose the company over everything else. Before he told himself that a man building an empire had no room for softness. He had left Helen before she could tell him she was pregnant. He never knew about Lily. Not until 3 years ago, when during a routine background check on all building staff, a file landed on his desk with Helen's name, her photograph, and her emergency contact. Lily Mercer, daughter. He stared at that file for 2 hours without moving. He did the math. And then he closed the file, put it in his desk drawer, locked it, and told himself it was a coincidence. It had to be. He had no proof. He would not destroy the careful, controlled life he had built over a shattered assumption. But he approved Helen's hire personally. He made sure her pay was the highest in the cleaning staff. He made sure the building management treated her with respect. He watched from behind glass walls, always at a distance, as she moved through his world like a ghost he owed everything to. He told himself this was enough. It wasn't enough. The night everything cracked, it was a Tuesday in November when Richard stayed late at the office. A major merger was falling apart, 12 lawyers on a conference call, screaming numbers at each other across 3 time zones. He was standing at the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at the Chicago skyline when he heard the sound. Quiet, almost nothing, a muffled sob from the hallway. He turned. Through the glass wall of the conference room, he could see Helen Mercer sitting on the floor in the corridor, her back against the wall, her mop abandoned beside her. She had her phone pressed to her ear and her free hand over her mouth, trying to hold in the sound of crying. Richard held absolutely still. He watched her lips move. He couldn't hear the words, but he could read the shape of devastation on a person's face. He had seen it in mirrors often enough. He excused himself from the call. He walked to his private office and quietly closed the door. He did not go into the hallway. He could not. The distance between them was too large, not in feet, but in years, in silence, in secrets. He sat at his desk and felt something crack open inside him that he had spent 24 years sealing shut. He picked up his phone, not to call Helen, to call his private investigator. "I need everything," he said quietly. "Helen Mercer, her daughter. Whatever is happening right now, everything." He had the report within 40 minutes. Lily Mercer, heart failure. Surgery date pending insurance approval. Funding gap, $130,000. GoFundMe, $4,000 raised. Time remaining before the hospital required a financial commitment, 9 days. Richard sat in the dark of his office for a long time. Outside, through the glass, he could see Helen resume her mopping. She had dried her eyes, straightened her back. She moved the mop in long, steady strokes, same as always, as if she hadn't just received devastating news. As if she wasn't carrying the weight of her daughter's life in her chest while she cleaned the floors of a man who didn't know he was her daughter's father. Or maybe he did know. Maybe he had always known. Richard Calloway, who had never in his adult life made a decision based on emotion, who had sacrificed his humanity at the altar of success and called it discipline, picked up his personal phone and dialed his attorney. "I need to make an anonymous wire transfer," he said. "Tonight." The miracle in a bank statement. Helen was on the bus home at 2:30 in the morning when her phone buzzed. A bank notification. She almost didn't look at it. She was exhausted, leaning her head against the cold window, watching the city lights blur past. But the buzz came again, an email this time from her bank. Transaction alert, deposit received. She opened it with tired eyes. And then she sat up straight. She read the number again, and again. $132,000, deposited from an account listed only as the Mercer Foundation, anonymous charitable gift. Helen's hands began to shake. She stood up on the moving bus, sat down again. She called the bank's emergency line and asked 3 times if this was real, if it was a mistake, if it would be reversed. The representative confirmed. The transfer was legitimate, irrevocable, and had been processed through a certified legal account. Helen pressed her phone against her heart and cried so hard the bus driver looked back at her in the rearview mirror. She called Lily's hospital coordinator at 3 in the morning, leaving a voicemail, voice cracking. "Call me back. I have the money. We have the money. Lily is going to have her surgery. Call me back." She didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table until sunrise, staring at her phone, crying and laughing and talking to her late husband's photograph on the wall. "We did it," she whispered to him. "I don't know how, but she's going to be okay." The man in the shadows. The morning after the transfer, Richard Calloway arrived at his office at 7 a.m., same as always. He reviewed contracts. He took 3 calls. He approved the revised merger terms that had finally been settled. At 11:15, he stood at his window with his coffee and watched a pigeon on the ledge below. His attorney had confirmed everything was untraceable. The foundation had been set up in less than 4 hours. Richard's team was extraordinarily efficient when he needed them to be. Helen would never know. Lily would never know. The world would never know. This was what he had wanted, wasn't it? He thought about the sound of Helen crying in the corridor. He thought about the file in his desk drawer. He thought about a woman who had raised a daughter alone, in silence, with dignity, scrubbing floors in a building that held the man responsible for her solitude. He thought about all the things he had never said. He did not go downstairs. He did not find a reason to cross paths with her. He did not write a letter or make a call. He sat with the knowledge of what he had done the way a man sits with an old wound, not healed, but no longer bleeding. Some debts cannot be paid with money, but some disasters can be prevented, and sometimes that has to be enough. Lily's surgery. 3 weeks later, Lily Mercer was wheeled into the operating room at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Helen sat in the waiting room for 6 hours. She had brought a thermos of tea and a small photograph of Lily as a little girl, gap-toothed, grinning, holding a plastic stethoscope. She always wanted to be a nurse, Helen thought. Even at age 5, she was trying to fix everything. The surgery was successful. When the surgeon came out to tell her, Helen stood up so fast she knocked over her thermos. She grabbed the doctor's hand with both of hers and couldn't speak for a full 30 seconds. Lily spent 2 weeks in recovery. Helen slept in the hospital chair beside her bed every night, going home only to shower and change before coming back. When Lily was finally discharged, walking slowly, leaning on her mother's arm, blinking in the pale winter sunlight outside the hospital entrance, Helen looked up at the sky and said a quiet thank you to whoever had been listening. She still didn't know who had saved her daughter. She had tried. She'd hired a small-time researcher for $200 to trace the foundation. It was a dead end, perfectly constructed, meticulously anonymous. Someone out there, she told Lily, is an angel, a real one, in a suit somewhere probably. Lily laughed, a real laugh, the first in months, and squeezed her mother's hand. Whoever they are, Lily said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life being worth saving. The morning that almost changed everything. 4 months after the surgery, Helen returned to Vantage Tower. She had taken medical leave to care for Lily. Now Lily was stable, back in physical therapy, growing stronger every week. Helen needed her income. She needed the routine. On her first night back, she stepped off the elevator onto the 42nd floor with her cart and found the floor dark and empty, as usual, except for one light. The CEO's office at the end of the corridor. Richard Calloway was still in his office at 11 p.m. She could see his silhouette at the window, standing exactly as he often stood, looking at the city. Helen had seen him hundreds of times over 3 years. She had cleaned around his desk while he worked late. She had emptied his trash while he spoke on the phone in languages she didn't understand. She had existed in his peripheral vision without ever registering as a person. Tonight, for reasons she couldn't explain, she paused. She looked at him, really looked at him, through the glass. Just a man, alone at a window, looking at a city that couldn't look back. He seems lonely, she thought. It surprised her, thinking of a billionaire that way. But loneliness didn't care about bank accounts. She knew that better than anyone. She pushed her cart forward and began her work. And in his office, Richard Calloway turned slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if he had sensed a presence behind him. He looked at the reflection in the glass. He could see her, distant, moving, going about her work with the quiet grace of someone who has survived enormous things. He stood completely still for a moment. Then he turned back to the city. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them ever would. But in that reflected glass, in that silent, shared space, two people who had shaped each other's lives without acknowledgement existed in the same world for just a moment. And somehow it was enough. What silence costs. Lily Mercer became a cardiac nurse. She works today in the very hospital where her surgery was performed. She has held the hands of patients waiting for the news that will change their lives. She has learned that healing is quiet work, unglamorous, exhausting, and deeply necessary. Helen still works nights. Not at Vantage Tower, she retired from there after another year, her body finally asking for rest. She tends a small garden now. In the backyard of the house, she and Lily share. Roses, mostly. She says they remind her that beautiful things require patience. Richard Calloway sold Calloway Global 4 years ago, a $22 billion deal that made front pages worldwide. He donated 40% of the proceeds to anonymous medical foundations. He is retired now, quieter. He has been described in recent interviews as a man who seems at peace. He has never told anyone about Helen or Lily. He never will, because some things are not stories we tell. Some things are simply the truest version of who we are, hidden from applause, invisible to the world, known only to God and the silence between two people.